Well, good afternoon, everyone, as the music comes down. So welcome to Startup Hour. I know I'm very excited to hear a lot of the presenters today. And we're really here to support entrepreneurship. Before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, Stoney Nakoda Nations, and the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. We also want to acknowledge that today we're situated on land near the Bow River, which has shaped this land for generations. So my name is Chris Brown. I work for Calgary Economic Development, leading the energy and environment portfolio. And I'm really excited to be here, and part of that is just the groundswell around Calgary. We have a lot of fantastic news happening in our community, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that today.
Hi, thanks, Chris. My name is Megan Zimmerman. I'm the Director of Business Development with Calgary Economic Development. Also very happy to be here. We're fangirls and boys on Energy Disruptors, so it's awesome to be a part of the event and be invited to help facilitate today's panel. When I say Calgary Economic Development, a lot of people say to me, I have no idea what you do and I've never heard of you, so I will tell you what our mandate is, which I think is a pretty quick way to understand our value proposition here in the community. Calgary Economic Development positions Calgary for long-term economic success. We do that through the expansion, retention, and attraction of people, capital, and talent. So hopefully that spurs some questions you can ask me later. Chris and I and our colleagues are really happy to serve this community and support the momentum we'll hear today from some of the entrepreneurs in our tech and innovation community. And the secret about our city is out. Probably many of you have heard that in 2022, Calgary was ranked the most livable city in the Western Hemisphere. Which is awesome, and third in the world. So definitely really good marketing when we're doing our work, and I think those of us that live and work and play in Calgary know that we have a very special place here. So lots of opportunities here in the community, and I think what's really special is that the community really supports each other in being successful, like we will today with our three awesome speakers.
And on that thread, like I know I've been thinking a lot about the last 18 to 24 months. I think it's hard not to, right? And if we ignore COVID, if we just think about some of the things that have happened in our broader community, it starts to really paint a good picture in my mind. So we had Pathways Alliance. There's no particular order. It's roughly right. But we had the Pathways Alliance, right? Major industry collaboration come together to set net zero targets. Kind of unprecedented industry collaboration. We had our new mayor, Mayor Gondak, and the council pass a climate declaration. Right? We finally joined most major cities in Canada with the climate declaration. Calgary Economic Development, I'm a little biased here, but we released our Alberta Energy Transition Study, which was the first time we kind of quantified that once-in-a-generation economic opportunity in the energy transition on a path to net zero. Right? You might get US, you might get Canada, but definitely not Alberta. And then last quarter, our council passed our climate strategy and net zero. So another step in the right direction in my mind. So now, at all those levels, industry, government, our broader community, we're preparing now for all the work that needs to happen, right? We heard Peter Trzakian talk a lot about that at the beginning and to start the session. So a lot of great proof points to our North Star. And our North Star in Calgary, it's our vision statement for our community-built economic strategy, where Calgary is the place where bright minds and big ideas come together with an unmatched spirit to help solve global challenges.
And speaking of global challenges, you'll hear from three Calgary entrepreneurs today, TERIC Power, VizworX, and ComboCurve. You'll learn more about their approach to reducing carbon and integrating new technologies across the energy value chain. Each of them will have 10 minutes to wow and delight you as they share their vision for a low-carbon, technology-enabled, data-driven energy future. And first up, Craig Barnes from TERIC Power. As Craig makes his way to the stage, I thought I'd share a fun fact about Craig. He tells me that he's a mad keen surfer, and when he's not visiting sites, industrial sites in northern Alberta, you can find him down at Harvey Passage surfing the wave. Okay, Craig, over to you.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Chris. My name is Craig Barnes. I am one of the co-founders and the VP of Development at TERIC Power. And excited to tell you a little bit about our journey and what we're currently doing in the electricity market. So TERIC Power is traditionally categorized as an independent power producer, an IPP, although we are now almost exclusively focused on the the provision, the conceptualization, the development, and the ownership of battery energy storage projects. So we're now battery guys. Although we got our starts in the energy industry as such, we saw an opportunity to convert waste gas to electricity. And how we categorize waste gas is essentially gas that oil producers don't want, or gas that gas producers can't get to market. So we saw the opportunity to capture that gas and convert it to electricity. And in the case of oil producers that were sometimes venting, sometimes flaring that gas, we would capture that gas and convert it to electricity, and then sell it as such. And then in the case of gas producers who couldn't get their gas to market, if they had their midstreamer shut them in, the infrastructure, the pipeline system went down, they couldn't get their gas to market, they were curtailed because of oversubscription issues, and they couldn't do anything. Essentially, they were stranded. We would take that gas and convert it to electricity, and in both cases, we would sell their gas molecules as electrons. So that's how we got our start. We were pretty lucky in that it was a relatively soft landing for us, in that our first projects were all in Saskatchewan. And SaskPower was really innovative in that they had a fixed program that was designed to incentivize producers not to flare. And as I mentioned earlier, in worst cases, not to vent, right? So they had a fixed offtake program where they would offer a firm price over a firm term for any electron that was generated or derived from flare gas. And TERIC had a bit of a midstream model ourselves, where we went in and we were either part of the project, where we owned it and we shared in the revenue, or we acted as a midstreamer. So we got our revenue as kind of on that midstream model, a processing fee. So Saskatchewan was really easy. Enter Alberta, which is essentially where we're based. We're a Calgary-based company. A little bit more difficult, right? It's we've all heard of the deregulated market here, which in many ways is easier, but in most cases it's very difficult to understand what the revenue stack or the revenue opportunities are for a typical battery. So we're now focused on batteries, and having understood the power market and understanding how we essentially sell electrons here in Alberta in a deregulated market, and how to customize commercial strategies for assets, we saw an opportunity to essentially play grid stabilization or grid support services with batteries. So that market is typically played by incumbent thermal generators, like gas-based or even coal-fired electricity generators. They would typically provide these grid stabilization or support services. But taking a step back, as we transition to a greener grid, meaning a grid that consists of more renewable energy generation, grid operators are offering companies, independent power producers like ourselves, the opportunity to go head on with the large incumbents and actually play these grid support services with our batteries. And we saw the opportunity to put batteries in there, and a real disruptive technology, in many cases cheaper, and in most cases more efficient than some of the thermal generation that we were going up against. So now this is TERIC's core focus, to participate in these programs with batteries. As I mentioned, a disruptive technology, and we one of the first companies to do that. So utilizing this understanding of the revenue stack and the market opportunities, we went on to develop what is still Canada's largest portfolio of battery energy storage projects. It's a 120 megawatt portfolio consisting of 6 projects. 3 of those projects are in operation right now. The 4th one actually started construction last Friday, and the final 2 20-megawatt standalone battery energy storage systems have just received regulatory approval and start construction at the end of the year. So these batteries, as I mentioned, are participating in the grid stabilization, grid support, or what they call the ancillary services market here in Alberta. Battery storage is a very kind of strange resource that grid operators, regulators haven't really quite come to terms with yet. And in the beginning, we really did struggle to find an easy path into it because, a battery is both a generator and a load. So in many cases, certainly with interconnections, when we're working with the local ISO here, they didn't have a fixed path for batteries to operate in. So we kind of had to put like 1 foot on the generator side, 1 foot on the load side, and then straddle and find our way forward. And the same on the regulatory side as well. It wasn't easy to permit a project that was brand new, and of course all the issues. Public issues around lithium-ion and some of the concerns around that. But again, we managed to find a way and essentially lead the way for actually a lot of the larger incumbents to follow us with their batteries. But it was the identification of this application, which is batteries to play grid stabilization, grid support services, that really led us onto our next application. And we're now working with large load customers, so essentially large industrial power consumers, large industry loads that are typically connected at the transmission level, loads of about 20 megawatts up, as well as renewable energy generators to locate our batteries essentially on their facility, behind the fence, behind their meter, to not only play the grid stabilization and support services, but also other OPEX reduction opportunities for the battery host, and then additional revenue opportunities in addition to those ancillary services that I mentioned earlier. So we typically work with these large load customers, the renewable energy generators. We sit down with them, we understand what their needs are, and we develop a customized revenue stack where essentially there are typically 4 to 6 opportunities that these batteries can play, and then we work with them to deploy that commercial strategy. One of the wins that we did have in terms of successes along the way was forming a very strategic partnership with a real-time asset dispatch and optimization company called Eureka. And Eureka, our real-time desk, they're the guys that manage the commercial dispatch. And really having a battery with a dispatch ability is absolutely critical. And the partnership that we've had with Eureka has allowed us to offer clients a turnkey strategy where TERIC, our company, focuses on the technical side of things. How do you design the battery? How do you build the battery? How do you integrate it with the facility? Eureka focuses on the commercial dispatch of the asset at the end of the construction period, and then both companies focus on the development of the commercial strategy. And then there's always a feedback loop from essentially the design through to operation to ensure that the commercial strategy is in fact being deployed at the end of the battery to recognize that revenue stack of opportunities. So that was a big one for us. And then I guess I've got 20 seconds here in closing. One of the other ones was at the beginning of this year, we had a Calgary-based climate tech fund, innovation fund called Ideal Well Capital Partners, and they came in and took on a significant ownership stake within TERIC, which I guess is recognition of some of the work we've done on the disruption side of things, the clean tech side of things, because that aligns with their funds, and most importantly, and this is what gets us excited, allows us to actually own some of the projects that we've been deploying over the last couple of years. So that's in a nutshell, right on time.
Perfect, thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. So yeah, way to model, excellent use of time. So, I was just thinking, like, you roughly right, flare gas to power, then we went into batteries, in the Alberta market, right? And I think in there was maybe some of it, but I was wondering if you just expand on that commercial strategy to compete in Alberta against the incumbents, right, in Alberta.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, so as I said there, Chris, SAS Power made it easy in that if you were a flare gas producer, you just subscribed to this program, and as long as there was room at the substation, you were paid a fixed PPA. It was really easy. But here in Alberta, you kind of had to think out of the box a little bit and really break it down into what are the options, and maybe out of the 10 options, only 4 applicable to your asset. But having that strategy that is applicable and also customized, because in the case of a battery, because of the two-way nature of the charge and the discharge, it actually further complicates things, right? But to have that customized commercial strategy for the battery, I mean that's the only way they work here.
Okay, so a little bit of flexibility in there, and the right application is part of the secret. So awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Craig, and thank you for your presentation. So please, round of applause once again. Thank you. Okay, so our next speaker, I'm going to give 2 facts about Jeff. Okay, so one fact is that, and for anyone who came here to see Nanos Tech, Dr. Pereira Almayo lost his voice this morning. So at about noon, we found out we need another speaker. So the first thing that I want to say about Jeff is he's very generous with his time to come and fill in and give a fantastic story of a Calgary company. So please welcome Jeff for Lafrenz, President and CEO of VizworX. His childhood cat was an orange tabby called Pumpkinhead. So that's the fun fact, and he can maybe tell you a story about that. So please give him a big warm of applause.
Thanks so much, Chris and Megan, for doing this. Last minute, you get what you get with me at the moment. But I will tell you a story about Pumpkinhead to start off with. So as mentioned, when I was a child, I have a young son now, so I'm kind of reliving these memories. But when I was a child, we had a cat, Pumpkinhead. My father and I are out in the back shoveling dirt, digging in the garden. And I'm going to relate this story to entrepreneurship to give you a sense of how this works. So this cat was very excited about trying to catch a cabbage butterfly. And ever seen them? They're those white butterflies that kind of fly around. Of course, butterflies don't want to be caught, so this cat is jumping up in the air trying to catch this butterfly. And this is kind of like the entrepreneurial journey. We're going down a path, we're trying to get that thing that's not quite in our reach, and so we keep jumping up to try and get it, and we don't always get it. So this butterfly is flying along, the cat's trying to jump up to get it, and the butterfly is coming out to the fence, so the butterfly starts to get a little higher in elevation to try and get across the fence, and the cat decides, okay, I'm going to do one last try to get this butterfly. Jumps way up in the air, try to get the butterfly, and the butterfly decides, you know what, actually I'm going to go back this way. So in midair, the cat flips around, tries to get the butterfly, but of course, momentum's a wonderful thing, and momentum keeps that cat going towards the fence, and sure enough, whack into the fence, back onto the fence, down on the ground, pivot moment. Recognizing that's not the direction to go to, pivoted around, going after the butterfly that direction. And this is the nature of entrepreneurial journeys, is sometimes we're going down a path, we realize we're not on the right path, we have to pivot. That pivot can be painful sometimes, but we end up having to do it. And if you want to survive as an entrepreneur, that is part of your philosophy as an entrepreneur, is you've got to learn to pivot when the timing is right to do so, and this cat learned that, and so did I when I was that young. So this is the start of it. So what I do, I run a company called VizworX. I'm one of the co-founders of this company. VizworX is a Calgary-based company, although we do have a division in Brazil now that's been growing, so we are kind of expanding our footprint internationally. The kind of work we do really comes down to philosophy around data. So most people recognize that you can't make a good decision unless you have good data. The data should be driving the decisions you make, although in many cases, as we're kind of experienced, we do a lot based on intuition and then justify it with data. It's a whole different discussion around that. But data ultimately should be driving a lot of the decisions we make. But data is insufficient. Because data in its own right doesn't provide you with a story. The story, how you present it, how you visualize it, how you engage with it, that enables you to really understand that data and turn it into something meaningful that allows you to make good decisions. And that's what we do. We take complex data that is difficult to understand, and we turn it into information, into visualizations, into presentations that really enable people to understand that and make good decisions around it. Now, the underlying technologies we use are varied as a result of that, because the nature of the data, the nature of the decision-making process means that you don't have the same kind of solution out of the box all the time. You're always dealing with different technologies that require you to actually explore this in different ways. So our toolbox includes things like the classical web and mobile type applications and complex data visualization technologies, but we do a lot of work in immersive realities and augmented and virtual reality. Before this was kind of the cool sector to be in terms of industrial applications of this. We've been doing this now for probably 7 years already, doing immersive reality applications for industry. So this whole area has tremendous legs ahead of it, and we're seeing just the beginnings in my mind of what really is the power of this technology and its application in the industrial and commercial environments. What's cool about it is that the applications are not in any way limited to oil and gas or energy sector broadly speaking, but they are in fact across every commercial domain you can imagine. And the things you learn in one, you can apply to the other. And so we're doing a lot of this work across multiple domains. Certainly in the energy industry, we're doing stuff in next generation control room technologies. So imagine your classic control room where you're sitting in front of this big screen at the end of the room. You've got all these different consoles with multiple screens on them. Classic control room kind of concept out of Hollywood for the last 20, 30 years. Great, except that the amount of data that we're getting is getting to the point where that is no longer sufficient to really make good decisions around the things that you're controlling. We saw this as an incident in California, I think it was early this year or late last year, where there was a pipeline just off the coast and an anchor grabbed that pipeline and ripped the pipeline and started an oil spill in the Gulf, off the coast of California. It took them, I don't know exactly how much time it was, but it was a very long time to recognize they had a problem and then to recognize what they had to do about the problem. That's all data-driven. They had the data. The data was there in some format, maybe not the way they should have, but the way that it was presented didn't allow them to understand it to the level they needed to make a good decision. So what became a minor incident became a major incident because of the time it took for them to actually respond to the incident. And that's about getting the right information at the right time in the right way so people can make better decisions. So that's ultimately what we do. So we're working on next generation control rooms where we take this concept of a fixed room and a fixed environment and throw virtual reality into it, and now you can go into a virtual world. I can present this in ways that you can't actually present in a physical room. In fact, we're doing work with the Canadian government around next generation control rooms for fishing, illegal fishing detection. So how do you then blend satellite data and in-theater resources of various sorts together for a controller who's going to have to identify that one hole in the water that's doing something that it shouldn't be doing around illegal fishing. And anybody who knows the illegal fishing marketplace knows that it's billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars of economic loss to every country that's being impacted by this. It's one of the massive environmental impacts in the globe. And it's also one of the single largest sources of slavery in the globe right now, because a lot of people on board these illegal fishing boats are not of their free will on board. There's a massive fishing fleet, I believe it's from China, off the coast of the Galapagos area, so outside of the jurisdiction of the Galapagos, that theoretically is outside of the Galapagos, but when the satellite's not there, are they still outside the coast? Who knows? So this kind of stuff is going on, and the environmental impact of it is massive, but one of the ways that information can be used is not just for interdicting, but for deterring. If people know that they're being monitored, it's odd enough, they stop doing the things they shouldn't be doing. And so this idea around presenting information, enabling people to actually understand it, can also be a deterrent in those kind of cases where people are doing these activities. But that same underlying context can be used for utility companies, for energy companies. And in fact, in June last year, we pitched to NATO about using the same technology together with the University of Calgary research group for space domain awareness. So how do you actually understand what's going on in near Earth space around things like satellites, how those satellites are covering the map? So where is that satellite located relative to the planet? So what is it actually seeing from that location? What other things are in orbit near it? What space debris may be around there? This is a very big problem now, as we're getting so much stuff in the near Earth space that it's actually becoming a potential for accidents to occur, which become propagating, shall we say. When an accident occurs between two objects in space, they create a debris cloud. That debris cloud can then impact other objects, and it can kind of spread out from there. So this is a big issue. So NATO is very interested in this concept from the perspective of, How do we actually identify what's going on in aerospace? How do we identify satellite potential collisions? And how do we identify actors who may be deliberately trying to do something with their satellites to cause issues? So being able to visualize it, to understand what's going on is what we pitch to them. We're one of the top winners of that. That's now resulting in us going through our NATO security clearances, which we're going through right now. And I'm going to be speaking at NATO next month, actually, in Belgium. And so this kind of thing comes out of doing these technologies and understanding that what started out with actually a University of Calgary research group around next generation control rooms and one of our founding research labs has turned into a commercial opportunity for us that could impact a number of domains, from oil and gas and energy sector more broadly, to utilities, to energy systems, to space and what we're doing in space, to fishing, to, in fact, the same technology can be used, and you can see it, by the way, if you want to. We're across on the other side, underneath the stands there, we have a demo there. You can come over and see it and try it yourself. We're showing off also another one around security systems. How can you monitor security systems and have multiple different cameras instead of this kind of myriad of different cameras and displays that are around in a classic security room? We can do that all in virtual reality. And we can actually show you a three-dimensional topo map that shows where those cameras are located. So you get this blend of classic kind of camera views together with the topological information on it. This is all available in virtual reality, not something you can do in physical reality. So potentials of these kind of technologies. I have 1 more minute left, so I will say that this is just the piece of the kind of stuff that we do. We're doing stuff with Whirly around using augmented reality, virtual reality for next generation design, so managing the whole design of infrastructure process. Right now, between 5 to 30% of the cost of a construction project is in rework, most of which is design related. If you can address that during the design phase, you can dramatically reduce the cost of construction. So we've built a solution that's being used by companies like Whirly to do exactly that. So that they can dramatically reduce that, they can manage their whole design process. And it's leveraging this idea that why you find that during construction is that's when you have a good spatial understanding. I know that if I put my hand up, I'm going to hit this thing. If I'm standing, if I'm looking at this on a 2D screen, I have no idea how high that is. I don't know if I can reach that or not. If I have to do that as part of my job, can I actually reach that to do it? In fact, I believe one of the big oil and gas producers, which I won't name, a few years ago built a facility, and they realized after they constructed it that all the valves were too high for people to reach. So they ended up having to put a bunch of ladders up. I think 700 ladders they put up through the facility so that people could climb up and get access to these valves. Something that would have been immediately obvious when they tried to operate it was not apparently obvious during construction and not even in the design phase. But that could have been found in the design phase if they'd been able to use a solution like ours at the time. So I'm out of time, but thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to talk to you again later. Cheers.
Thanks, Jeff. Not bad for 20 minutes notice. This guy's a pro. Thank you. I'm going to steal your question, Maggie, because I want to make sure it gets asked, if you don't mind. Can you address your technology and the application in the metaverse and the work that you're doing there? The current buzzword.
Yeah. And the industrial metaverse.
Pardon me, the industrial metaverse, and the application of your technologies.
Absolutely. So
yes.
If you look at, or if you heard about what's going on in the metaverse or the concept of the metaverse, it's all over the place, of course, this idea of what is a metaverse. Conceptually, in the industrial context, this has been around for a long time as well. We'd call this digital twins. Digital twins is the basis of a lot of what we think of as a metaverse these days, but it's more than just a digital twin. A digital twin can have many different instantiations. It's also the environment you access to engage within this. So this digital twin could be a physical facility. Great, now I access that to find operational information. I can use that as part of my operational environment. So I actually test things out in my digital twin before I test it out in the physical environment. It's a safety benefit, it's a maintenance benefit. There's many different ways to leverage this technology. And as I said, we've been working on this for over 7 years using these kind of technologies. A lot of this is augmented and virtual reality based, but it's not exclusive to that. And one of the underlying things about the metaverse is that accessibility is key. Not everybody has a virtual reality headset or augmented reality headset. You need to support web and mobile and tablets and all these kind of different technologies to enable a fully engaged environment in the metaverse. So this is really, when you think about it, there's massive business value in enabling people to access complex data, in this case spatial information about digital twins and other things, using whatever approach they happen to have available to them at home or in their office or wherever that environment may be. And that has to be the philosophy around metaverse for the industrial applications. We can talk literally for hours about in terms of what's going on in this industrial space, and happy to have that conversation with people about it. And again, I'll mention again, we are demoing some of this stuff literally as you come in the door, the staircase to the right, we're just right there. Come and have a look at it and come and see it, because one of the things I find the irony of trying to describe these highly visual, highly engaging things by talking to you about it. You have to come and experience it. So come and have a look at it. You'll get this sense of what it really looks like and what it feels like to be in these environments, for sure. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. All right, you'll have a rush at your booth after this session. Okay, and our last but not least speaker is Doug McMaster, Vice President of Product at ComboCurve. Couple interesting facts about Doug. His first vehicle was a 1995 red Chevy Astro van that he shared with his twin brother and twin sister. I'm sure that created a lot of conflict in the house. And when he's not working at ComboCurve, he's trying to build a TVC rocket that actually launches and lands. So, over to you.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm head of product for ComboCurve. We're a cloud-based operating platform for energy companies. And our bread and butter is predicting the future. So we provide physics and data-driven models to allow users to forecast oil and gas wells, schedule future assets, and make decisions economically. So we empower our users to build advanced petroleum economic models for the capital, expenses, taxes, that sort of thing for the next 50 years. And so I'll be honest, I didn't feel like I was an energy disruptor. It's kind of a big moniker, right? A big title. So I feel I have to kind of convince you that we're worthy of that title. So disruption is about changing the industry. And first off, we're the only reserves platform in the cloud. And we're battling an entrenched market that has been around for about 40 years. And the same, 250,000 calculations and cases for wells that you want to run takes about 21 hours in the legacy state. So could you imagine telling your boss, yeah, I'll answer that question, but can you wait 21 hours? So disruption means speed and collaboration. Second, just like any software you use on the internet or website that you go to, if you ever need help, we've got a ticketing system. And so surprisingly, we're different in the way that you can get a hold of a real human in less than 5 minutes, and you can get on a Zoom call with a real petroleum engineer in 10 minutes flat. So we'll help you walk through the workflow. That's very important for the current state of way to do calculations in the industry, but also for the carbon future. Right? Someone wants to be, hey, I need help, right? So we pulled the stats on that. 90% of the ticket responses are in under 3 minutes. The third is we have a video-first knowledge-based system. So we've got short videos for everything, right? You always forget about how to do a certain thing to get your job done, and that's, it's better than reading documentation. But we also have a certification program to train industry professionals and students around the planet. So in reserves and acquisition and divestitures, that midstream evaluations, and we've taught over 2,000 students in 100 universities in over 25 countries. So disruption is training. And finally, a little bit about the company. So we launched in May of 2020, right after COVID. And in over two years, we've gotten into 230 companies. So it's been really rapid growth. We're the fastest growing fintech energy company in the oil and gas space. So in the spirit of the conference, right, my vision for disruption in the carbon space is to drive the energy industry into a low-carbon future by hijacking the current decision-making process. So in order to hijack the process, you have to kind of understand what it is right now. In most upstream oil and gas companies, how do they make their decisions? On data, right? On complex modeled economic metrics. So usually companies have some sort of philosophy, right? They have some sort of collection of metrics where it has to be a certain threshold above or below. And we know what those are, right? They're net present value, internal rate of return, discounted cash flows, estimated ultimate recovery of wells. But what's missing? And it's the ESG metrics, right? Where's scope 1? Where's scope 2 emissions? Where's the carbon intensity relative to the asset? And so, the big question is, do these numbers actually have a seat at the decision-making table? And so I'd like to argue not yet, right? It's underway, it's just not widely distributed. And we need all the players in this space to participate in the same set of metrics, right? Operators, midstream, banks, other institutions. We need a lingua franca, a common tongue, a common set of metrics that everyone knows about and even has an intuition on, right? Is that number high? Is that low? You know, the consolidation of frameworks is happening, right? TCFD, ESG, EPA, SASB, that sort of thing. But it hasn't entered the cooler talk, right? You know, oh man, did you see that announcement from company number one? It's a totally new play. Its carbon intensity is below than 10 kilograms per BOE. So clean, right? I know what you're thinking. I have the best cooler talk. You should come and say hi. But we have to upgrade the skill set and the intuition and tools of the current decision makers through the technology of software. And so we have a new module called ComboCurve Carbon that provides the tools to rapidly estimate your greenhouse gas emissions side by side with the economics. So it's one software, one workflow. So who in the industry builds this information? It's reservoir engineers. And who is going to build the models for emissions? Reservoir engineers. I know what you're thinking. You're like, what? No, not environmental departments? I mean, historically, their responsibility was just reporting on the past and submitting the numbers to the government and maybe doing a haircut 10% out in the future. So, you know, to drive change, you have to have it in the current hands of the current decision makers, and those are the reservoir engineers. They build the financial models. So, you know, those smaller models that are done in Excel, that haircut, they're important. They should, you know, spur real conversations, but they're not actionable, right? Where is this going to come from? What investments and changes do I need to accomplish a certain target? And which option is my biggest bang for buck? So to currently build an economic evaluation of an asset, you have to gather all sorts of information from across the business. CapEx models from drilling, completions, and facilities departments. Marketing, price information from marketing or corporate finance. Net effective tax modeling from accounting departments. The reservoir engineers have all these relationships. They have access to all this data. They just need a little bit more. So what about emissions and sustainability modeling, right? To drive a low carbon future, it's a lot of the same information. You're using production data, forecasts, well counts, equipment types, fluid compositions, compressors, electrification. Those are just you know, another data set just to add to the reservoir engineering plate. So that's a lot of data. Can you imagine a business having 2 softwares, 2 employees, 2 workflows, 2 databases? I think unlikely. So businesses are going to do what they always do. They're going to ask more from their current employees. So, you know, why are reservoir engineers well suited for it? Because they do this complex data, right? They have the, you know, the ability to think futuristically. They talk to all these different departments about what's possible, right? They know how to ask those what-if questions to drill 8 or 10 wells a year or to buy another asset and for how much. So what do they have to learn? How to model emissions. Well, that's exciting. It's also kind of daunting, but it's definitely a disruption to their day-to-day. So to make the disruption more graceful, our goal is to expand our certification program to teach greenhouse gas emissions and carbon economics. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States, there's about 18,000 petroleum engineers. And so 2,000 students that we've taught so far is about 10% of the workforce. So it's our goal to actually educate, and we're on the way. We're making a dent and impact to educate everyone on how to do this and ask those really important what-if questions. Okay, so what else? Like I said, those what-if questions. They have to learn how to ask those new questions that are different than the ones they asked previously to drive those next investments. So they have to understand, will this impact their ability to get a loan, to get insured, to get carbon taxed, or to receive incentives? Is that emission volume high or low? So after we train the current and new generation of engineers, what do these questions look like? Well, if I buy company A, does that increase or decrease my emissions intensity? And if it increases, what can I do to reduce that intensity? So where to begin? According to the great contemporary psychologist Jordan Peterson, you should start with a question. What is the one thing that I'm doing wrong that I could fix, that I would fix? And I think it's a great what if question. And the answer to that is to build your first emissions model. So what if you could build your first realistic, economic, net zero model in an hour? And what if you can get your company to carry them out and track them? I think you can. That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Doug. That was great, and really, what strikes me, and I just really realized this listening to you is a really tangible example of the industry maybe switching from a more retrospective view on emissions to a proactive view, which would be a massive step forward. Right. But I would also imagine in order to get that, you have to be a policy expert. You have to be an economics expert. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I was just curious, as ComboCurve expands, like what does that lift look like to expand to a new jurisdiction, to understand all those frameworks and then build out those models?
Yeah, great question. So that's part of the education, right? And is it a realistic expectation that everyone's going to learn all these frameworks? No. So you kind of have to have it embedded in the software. It's kind of like the TurboTax of economics, that you walk through different menu options. It kind of guides you through the process. So I think that's the tall order that we have, is what framework is going to win out, which one's important, or which jurisdictions do we have to build different answers for, modeling techniques and answers for, and reporting options. So long story short is like the future is challenging about, the different frameworks and what people actually have to learn. So the more we can kind of shift the burden of what people have to learn into easy to use tools, the more graceful the transition will be.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for taking that on for us then. Thanks. Okay, let's give Doug a big round of applause. So, really, just to wrap up, I think all three speakers are fantastic examples in my mind, some of those great stories that we're seeing in our community. And of course, I'm biased, but I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about what's happening in Calgary, what's happening in our broader community. Giving another stat, I don't know if many people here knew, 2021, we were named top 30 clean tech ecosystem out of 286 cities. So that's a big deal for Calgary, right? Which, frankly, is seen as a very conservative, oil and gas heavy community. And on that, path to net zero, we have a real strong value proposition, particularly in 6 prioritized subsectors, right? So ag tech, digitalization, carbon capture, utilization, storage, electrification, energy efficiency, and then hydrogen. So certainly, I am very excited to see what our community can do in the future.
Economic developers love facts, but I have 2 more that might actually give you a bit of a wow moment to pause and reflect. We heard a lot about technologies and companies today, and these are, of course, underpinned by people. So in our work, we focus a lot on, do we have the right people now and into the future? In 2022, LinkedIn ranked Calgary as the fastest growing tech talent market in North America. If you think about that, that's more than New York, San Francisco, Toronto, Vancouver. It's a great stat. It's definitely demonstrating that we're on the right path around technology talent development. And to close, because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience and those of you that are raising capital, in the first half of 2022, so the first 6 months of this year, Calgary attracted the 4th highest venture capital investment in Canada. So that's $427 million across 42 deals. We're on pace to beat last year's record, which was $500 million, which was already a record-breaking year. So I think that's also a really great momentum to be following in terms of capital, and global eyes on Calgary and Calgary-made technologies. So you're on the right track, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. So with that, I'm going to close with our North Star again, because I think it's worth repeating. We truly believe that Calgary is the place where bright minds and big ideas come together with an unmatched spirit to solve global challenges. So thank you for joining us today. We look forward to meeting you, and I guess Jeff as well at the VizworX booth on the floor. So thank you very much. We'll see you during the conference.